She walked down the spiral staircase of her Colorado home the morning after Christmas, expecting to find the warm glow of the holidays still lingering in the air. Instead, she found a letter 3 pages long spread across the bottom step, a ransom demand, a warning, a nightmare, and deep below her, in the cold basement of a mansion wrapped in silence, lay the truth no one was ready to face. 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey was already dead. In the winter of 1996, Boulder, Colorado was known as the kind of place where tragedy felt impossible. A quiet city tucked beneath the Rockies, home to scholars, artists, and families who believed danger was something that happened elsewhere. But in the Ramsey home, a sprawling Tudor-style house filled with Christmas decorations, shimmering lights, and expensive gifts, something unimaginable had taken shape. The Ramseys were a picture-perfect family. John, a successful CEO whose company had recently hit $1 billion in sales. Patsy, a former beauty queen who seemed to glow with charm and pride. Their son Burke, quiet and reserved. And JonBenét, the crown jewel of the family, a child pageant star with blonde curls, bright eyes, and a smile that lit up stages across the country. What happened inside that home would fracture their perfect image forever. Christmas Day had been full of celebration dinner with friends, presents unwrapped, laughter echoing through the hallways. But sometime during the night, while the town slept beneath a blanket of snow, something inside the Ramsey house went terribly, brutally wrong. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy Ramsey placed a frantic call to 911. Her voice shook as she told the operator her daughter was gone. A ransom note left behind demanding $118,000. The number was peculiar, too specific. It matched almost exactly the amount of John Ramsey's year-end bonus. When police arrived minutes later, they found Patsy in a frenzy, wearing the same clothes as the night before, makeup smeared, hands trembling. John tried to console her, but the air in the house felt suffocating, a blend of fear, confusion, and something else, something harder to name. The ransom note became the center of attention immediately. It wasn't a hurried scrawl on a scrap of paper. It was long 2.5 pages written with materials from inside the house. The tone was melodramatic, referencing foreign factions and elaborate threats. The instructions were detailed. Place the money in a brown paper bag. Come alone. Wait for the kidnappers to call. But the note contained inconsistencies, misspellings that seemed intentional, movie-style lines that mimicked films from the era, and that signature S.B.T.C., initials that, to this day, mean nothing and everything. Strangely, there were no signs of forced entry, no broken doors, no disturbed snow outside, no footprints, no shattered locks. It was as if the intruder had slipped in and out like a ghost, or had been inside all along. The police, overwhelmed and unprepared for such a high-profile case, made a critical mistake. They allowed neighbors, friends, and church members inside the home to comfort the Ramseys. People cleaned counters, moved objects, touched doorknobs, walked through rooms, sat on furniture. Evidence potential fingerprints, fibers, traces of DNA vanished under well-meaning hands. By the time investigators realized the scale of the crime, the scene had become a forensic disaster. Hours passed with no sign of JonBenét. Officers asked the Ramseys and their friends to search the house again. It was John who walked down to the basement and opened the door to a small, windowless utility room. Moments later, he screamed for help. JonBenét was lying on the floor, covered in a blanket. Duct tape sealed her mouth. A garrote handmade from a cord and a broken paintbrush handle was wrapped around her neck. John carried her upstairs, desperate and devastated, unknowingly contaminating crucial evidence with every step. The moment he lifted her, the case shifted from a kidnapping to a homicide. The autopsy revealed a combination of injuries: a deep skull fracture, marks on her neck consistent with strangulation, signs that suggested she may have been stunned or rendered unconscious before the garrote was tightened. There were indications that the staging of the body might have occurred after death, but the medical findings were ambiguous, leaving more questions than answers. Evidence simultaneously pointed in multiple directions toward a kidnapping gone wrong, a sexually motivated crime, an accidental killing, or a staged cover-up. From the beginning, the investigation split into two camps. One believed an intruder entered the house, murdered the child, wrote the ransom note, and escaped without being seen. The other believed the killer was already inside the home, someone who panicked, staged a kidnapping, wrote the ransom note in an attempt to mislead investigators, and left the body in the basement as a tragic attempt to cover up a moment of rage or an accident. The intruder theory pointed to an open basement window with a broken pane. John claimed he broke it months earlier after locking himself out. Investigators found a scuff mark on the wall beneath it and an unidentified boot print near the body. There was also unidentified male DNA on JonBenét's underwear and leggings. Supporters of the intruder theory argued these clues strongly suggested an outsider entered the home, but critics countered every point. The DNA could have been transferred during manufacturing or packaging. The scuff mark could have been from a previous incident. The boot print could have belonged to an investigator. Nothing was conclusive. The ransom note, however, pulled many towards suspicion of someone inside the home. Handwriting experts spent years comparing the writing to Patsy's. Some said it was too similar to ignore. Others insisted it did not match. No definitive answer ever emerged. The note's theatrical tone raised eyebrows. It felt like someone imitating a kidnapper, not an actual criminal demanding ransom. Investigators believed if the crime was staged, it was staged by someone with access to the entire house. Someone who felt comfortable enough to write for nearly half an hour without fear of being caught. The Ramseys' behavior added fuel to the fire. They hired attorneys almost immediately. They declined some interviews with police, citing fear of being framed. Patsy's dramatic appearance at press conferences, tearful, glamorous, and composed, was criticized as both genuine grief and calculated image management. John appeared protective, defensive, and determined to control the narrative. Burke Ramsey, just 9 at the time, became a source of fascination decades later, after interviews showed him smiling awkwardly while discussing the case, an unsettling detail that many misinterpreted as guilt rather than childhood trauma. Forensic evidence complicated the case further. A bowl of pineapple was found in the kitchen, partially eaten. JonBenét had pineapple in her stomach, meaning she ate it before her death, but the Ramseys insisted they never gave it to her that night. Burke's fingerprints were on the bowl. Did JonBenét wake up during the night and wander downstairs? Was she hit in frustration, panic erupting into tragedy, or did an intruder feed her? Every theory spiraled into contradictions. As years passed, suspects emerged and faded. A man wrote disturbing letters to Patsy, claiming obsession with JonBenét. Another confessed, but was proven to be lying. A convicted offender lived nearby, but had no physical link to the crime. Every lead led nowhere. In 2008, the Boulder District Attorney's Office publicly cleared the Ramseys based on DNA evidence, but many investigators disagreed, calling the DNA too weak, too incomplete, too easily contaminated to exonerate anyone. Patsy Ramsey died in 2006, carrying the weight of suspicion to her grave. John continues to fight for a renewed investigation. Burke remains the silent figure in the background of a case that will never leave him. 3 decades later, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey is not just a crime. It is a mirror reflecting everything broken in the investigation: botched police work, public obsession, media frenzy, family secrets, and a crime scene destroyed before the truth ever had a chance. In the end, we return to that basement room, to the ransom note, to the untouched snow outside, to the locked doors, to the unanswered questions, and the haunting possibility that the truth was always inside that home, waiting for someone brave enough to face it. Because the final question remains the same, echoing through documentaries, case files, and sleepless nights. In a house where everyone claimed to be sleeping, who killed JonBenét Ramsey?